Brooks, and today I'm going to be chatting about FERPA and IDEA and their roles when it comes to protecting student data privacy, not only when it comes to technology, but also when it comes to their records in general. So let's get started. So, like many industries, we have grown accustomed to the alphabet soup of acronyms that guide our days. Oftentimes, we can spot and even name the letters in these acronyms, but we are not always able to explain them with any level of complexity or accuracy or even confidence. When it comes to student data privacy, we have a slew of acronyms, policies, laws, guidance, and best practices to follow. One of the most important is FERPA, FERPA, but you're going to see that the policies in place for IDEA are very similar and also important when it comes to protecting the privacy of our most vulnerable students. Is it confusing? You betcha. Would it be easier if just one person in the district could handle all of this and then none of the rest of us would have to deal with it? Absolutely. However, that scenario discounts the importance of everyone understanding the laws that are designed to protect our students and their privacy. No longer can we take a 7-minute quiz at the start of the school year as our only responsibility when it comes to understanding the rights and responsibilities that we sign off on. Let's dive in a little bit deeper to see if we can clarify a few things for you here. So, what is pi? Well, what is pi, you ask? Well, not the number defined as the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. It's not a delicious sweet or savory dessert that we crave. Let's make this as easy as pie, or serve up a slice of humble pie as we wrap our heads around the definition. PII, not pi, PII is personal identifiable information, and it's defined as any representation of information that permits the identity of an individual to whom the information applies to be reasonably inferred by either direct or indirect means. So basically, it is the information that either alone or in combination is linkable to a specific student that would allow a reasonable person in the school community who doesn't even have personal knowledge of the relevant circumstances to identify the student with reasonable certainty. It is the responsibility of the individual user to protect data to which they have access. An LEA, or a local education agency, needs to define what PII is in their district, and they can include things like first and last name, addresses, dates of birth, disability status, socioeconomic status, and even more. So up next are education records. And we're not talking about the 33, 45, or 78 vinyl ones that we play in the classroom or used to play in the classroom with lyrics maybe teaching us the multiplication tables. And we aren't talking about the breaking of academic or athletic records when we talk about education records. Education records are records that are directly related to a student and that are maintained by an educational agency or an institution or a party acting for or on behalf of the agency or institution. When it comes to both FERPA and IDEA, there are many rules about the storage of records, who has access to them, guidelines to record access requests, and communicating how long these records are maintained and even destroyed by the institution. Though FERPA and IDEA are very similar, school officials and those with access to records should have a clear understanding of the guidelines and safeguards. Policies should be put in place to communicate those guidelines, as turnover within an organization is not an excuse for a lapse in compliance. So, what is FERPA? What rights are protected under FERPA? And I missed one. Who does it protect? Those are great questions. So, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, is where we're able to say that students have a right to know about the purpose, content, and location of information that's kept as a part of their educational record. They also have a right to expect that information in their educational records will be kept confidential unless they give permission to the school to disclose such information. So FERPA protects students in elementary, secondary, and even post-secondary schools that receive funding from the Secretary of Education. Under FERPA, directory information such as name, address, telephone listing, and dates of attendance can be disclosed to third parties unless the eligible student has notified the school in writing that he or she does not want this information to be disclosed. FERPA provides the right to consent, review, inspect, and amend the information that's contained in and shared from student records. So, what is IDEA? Who does it protect? And what rights are protected under IDEA? More good questions. Both IDEA Part B and Part C ensure the protection of the confidentiality of any personally identifiable data, or PII, any information and records collected or maintained by the Secretary of Education, by the State Education Agency, SEA, and the local EA, or local education agency. Part C applies to the little ones, to babies from birth to age 3, whether they're determined to have a disability or they're simply being evaluated. Part C applies to students in schools as it protects anyone from age 3 to 21 who is diagnosed with a disability. So, do parents know about all of this? And can they opt out? And can they review or amend the student record? FERPA and IDEA both provide parents the right to inspect and review education records. They can seek to amend education records, and they also can give consent to the disclosure of personally identifiable information, or PII, from education records, except as provided by the law. Annual notifications should be provided to parents and guardians to remind them of their rights that they have in regards to student data privacy. And once a student turns 18, FERPA policies then apply to the student themselves, and the parent hands over that control. So who do I need to inform? Who is responsible for compliance? And who really cares about all this stuff anyways? So federal and state entities oversee local boards of education. It's ultimately the responsibility of the local education agency, or LEA, to train, to follow, and to monitor compliance. School officials well versed in student data privacy should train all staff to protect the privacy of students. Depending on your role, you may need to inform parents, school administrators, school staff, or special education providers in your school or district. You cannot put toothpaste back into the tube. It is our shared responsibility to protect the privacy of students until they are old enough to do so for themselves. I can assure you that a single presentation on FERPA and IDEA is not adequate to understand one of them, much less both of them. Becoming well versed in all aspects of student data privacy takes time, perseverance, and a commitment to servicing our students as part of our great responsibility. So thank you for taking the time to listen, and thank you for your interest. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we can work through better understanding these laws together.